Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's October 18th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And I thought I'd start out showing you the daily chart here. And you can see that we've made a perfect measured leg up. Basically, we went a little higher, but we closed right at that measured move. Can we go higher? Yeah, sure. It's possible. But with those two measured legs up, being this far away from the EMA, you would think we're probably correct to at least pull back some. Originally, we tested this measured move, but we've pushed on past that and made the measured move now for, this was leg one up, then the correction, and now leg two up. So we'll see where we go from here. Could we go higher? Of course we can. But it wouldn't surprise me if we don't back up a little bit here. Even if we're going higher, we may back up. This is the first close outside of this down blue channel. The key is here, it's definitely valid, but it doesn't mean we'll always come back and retest this low. I mean, this has been a real strong uptrend over a long period of time, so we may never come back. I mean, the last few times we made a correction, we couldn't get back. Here, we made a correction, couldn't get back. So we may continue with that. This is a little bigger correction than we had those last couple of times, but we'll see what tomorrow brings. But wouldn't surprise me at all tomorrow to see an inside day or to sell off and correct some, get a correction. I mean, we've had a really bullish move here, very nice move actually. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a correction now, back off. We may even come back and test this low. We could come down and test this original low here. So as I've said all along, I would definitely expect, even if this bull trend's over, we're going to retest this high here before this large upward trend that we've been going forever at the end. So, but we'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. So thought I would show you this. Interesting that we got a measured move, and you can see the little bit of stem right there, but we closed underneath that measured move. I mean, that's pretty close to a perfect measured move at this point. So again, we could go higher, but we may turn down here now. So because we do have two measured legs up, basically almost perfect measured legs. So we'll see what happens from here. Just wanted to show you that. Let's go back to the 2000 tick intraday chart. Okay, here's a look at our 2000 tick chart. It really was an uptrend for most of the day. It got really weak late here in the afternoon, but it continued to trend higher. And if you could find this channel, this green channel here, then you had a good idea where prices were going. Right into the 2 o'clock, right into the 2:30 cutoff time, we were still heading higher, so it was obvious where we were headed. Fairly obvious where we were headed. It looked like we were going to have a range early on, which we did. It looked like, but when we broke out here, and you can see even when we're going higher, it fails momentarily. So, and from there, it just went higher. So, and you had to assume that the close from yesterday was going to be one target. So I had two targets this morning. I had this target, and then the measured move for the day, which was, I can't remember what let me go look at that. Okay, here's the chart, mid-morning chart, and you can see the close from Friday was target one, and then I had 44.61 and a quarter was what we were looking for based on the measured move from the daily chart. So based on that, let's go back. Okay, here we are back over here, and if we just look, 44.61 and a quarter. Oh, that can't be right. Let's go back and look again. Here it is on the daily chart. So let's just look. 44.7650. So 44.7650. That's where we got on this Had the close, couple legs that we actually pushed up a little higher than that, but that was our target basically based on the measured move. And you can see we went a little higher than that, but then closed right about, where did we close? We closed under that a little bit. So anyway, I'm not sure what I had on the mid-morning chart there. I think I had a typo. Okay, I guess if I'd have read it, I'd have figured it out. I said prices, I just said that the target on the daily was probably our target to the upside. And this price here was where we were currently finding resistance right in here, 44.6125. So I guess if I would have read my own writing, I would have better understood what I was saying. So, but you can see here I was talking about the measured leg up on the daily, which is basically where we got to. So with this being the first target, that's the close from Friday, which is the 44.63 1/4. So hopefully that makes sense, and does to me now. I was kind of confusing myself a moment ago. But here we are back at today's chart. So let's back out here, go through the trades. There's not a lot of them, but there's several pretty good ones. It's kind of the same thing we've been seeing. We were in a uptrend until we met this overnight highs. Basically, these aren't actually the overnight highs, they're up here, but this is where we were getting most of the most recent resistance. And that's where it came in before, and then suddenly it starts acting as support and we go higher again. The other thing you might look at would be a measured move based on the height of this range, but you can see that's way up here and we didn't get anywhere near that. The measured move on that daily chart was the target, and once we met that, we just basically couldn't go any higher. So there's that. But anyway, let's zoom in here, talk about the trades. And early on we were in a downtrend, but it still really looks range-like. So you can clearly see all the middle of the range action here. But that doesn't change the fact that early on we were in this downtrend. We had a break, a couple legs to a new low, came back and tested that low again, and then we went higher from there. So 7 o'clock came just as we had this close outside. There's actually a second entry short here. Actually, it doesn't break lower there, but there's clearly a hidden second entry there. But this is before 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock doesn't come. Actually, this is at 6:38 or so. If you were here, you could take that trade if you wanted to. It is a hidden second entry, but you could also look at it like 2 attempts to go higher that failed. And you can clearly see the correction there. Even though we don't break lower, there's a lower high. That's an obvious 2 legs up. So, and that's a huge bearish bar. They make equal highs. So if you were here and wanted to go short there, you could. But really, the first trade I see after 7 o'clock is this second entry short here. And as a second entry short, this doesn't qualify because the signal bar is way too bullish. However, you got a new swing high here, so a first entry, second entry, so it's a failed second entry long plus a second entry short. So when it breaks lower there, as long as you got room to get out, you can take that trade, and you can see it didn't matter. It just rockets on down. And that's a nice early morning trade. I mean, you don't get a huge runner out of that, but if you just get a little bit of that 7.5 points there, maybe that's all you need for the day. So it's there for the taking. So, but anyway, we bounce here, get a first entry, and you come up here and you get a second entry short, but you don't have any break of this. Not a very good signal bar. It's just an inside bar. This one's bullish, but you try to go higher once and then twice, and it looks. Again, it's a failed second entry long and a second entry short with a bad signal bar for the second entry short. And what does it do? It drops on down again. Takes it a little bit longer to get going here, but it drops down to about the same spot and then bounces. I don't see any setups here. There is a higher low right here with some room back to the EMA. It looks a little congested. This doesn't look like rejection. If you took that, I wouldn't beat you up too bad over that one. I call it aggressive though. And when it didn't take off there, it gets really spooky, and it probably runs you out before it goes exactly where you think it's going to go. And that's the worst feeling in the world. But it runs up. Once it gets going, they're running the stops here. Off it goes. There is a failed second entry short here. It's off the key entry point, but there's some resistance across there, and you're way away from the EMA. I don't recommend that trade. Just wait a minute, and you'll get a first entry and then a second entry right here. Notice what happens. You pull back. You got a new high right here. You pull back, and you break higher, and you get a first entry. Then it goes lower and turns back up when it breaks above here. That's a second entry long. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And that's a great setup. Take it, and then if you wait a few minutes later, you get a failed second entry short, another chance to go long, and it just keeps chopping up. But this is starting to get congested. We're getting really close to the highs and where we've had a bunch of resistance. So I don't think it's worth really trading that anymore. It's real tempting to go short right there, but you don't have a lot of room back to the EMA. It looks a little congested. And it's the first break of this green channel. So you're probably going to get a retest of the high, and sure enough, there it comes. And I guarantee you somebody's probably going to ask me, well, what about this? There's a first entry, second entry, and it fails, and it traps people out, and then it comes back. I think somebody posted this on the forum. But this looks like congestion and a double top, so that just looks like first entry, and this looks like the second entry. But I don't like this as a second entry because it's an inside bar, and it's just kind of an up-down bar. And I think you're better off to wait and see if you get something better. It does run back up, makes the new high, then makes a lower high. That's not a great signal bar. Otherwise, I might have made that red instead of green. I mean, you've had everything in place here to take a short if you wanted it. It works out really easily, but it's not a really high probability setup that I'd like to take. But it does come down here and bounce, and that kind of confirms that trend line. But if you wait just a minute, you get a higher low and a second entry right there because that's a double top. So, and it looks like congestion. So once again, that just looks like a first entry, and then you get a second entry. And if you entered here, with that being below the EMA, I'm not crazy about it. And with all this resistance now being proven multiple times, you still got plenty of room back. But when you get this higher low and with no room, that's the better place to enter. Now, sometimes you won't get that higher low, but I still think you're better off to skip a trade and hope for a little more confirmation like you get here than to take a risk and go long like right there, and it goes one tick and turns on you. When that happens, it goes one or two ticks and turns down instantly. You're trapped. And this is a double trap because they trapped people out of this second entry right here, trapped them into the shorts, and then turn around and run all their stops. So that's what you call like a double trap, basically. And we're running into this resistance. There's still a lot of buying coming in, but we're running into all this resistance, and people are trying to pick a top, and it's not time yet. It's too early. And you can see we rocket up higher. And you got to be careful here, but we tried to go lower once, twice. You really got three times, but there's no space in there. But when it breaks lower right here and turns up and goes out the other side, I like going long there. It's a little bit aggressive, so I marked it green. But when you test that support that many times, that form of resistance, and it acts as support, I mean, technically we tested it once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then made a higher low. We tested it 7 times and made a higher low and then went higher. And you can see once it broke higher, they ran all the stops of people all these people that were getting short get run out real quick. And it pulls back and gives you another chance to go higher here. This was technically a second entry, but you got to go long right into the high of the day. And at this point, this is looking like a channel with maybe an overshoot. So you don't want to go long into that trend channel line. Even though it breaks higher, you don't have any guarantees that's going to happen. And in the end, it looks like it's probably an overshoot because we never get back up there again, and we really don't even make a measured move. So to me, that looks like an overshoot. So technically, this fits better right here. So I think it's more like that right there with an overshoot. We tried to retest that high, and we come down here. You had to be careful here, but that's a clear second entry right off this yellow key entry point. and you may have the green one here too. But I like that one. And it takes it a minute. If you didn't, if hopefully you didn't get shook out of that, but you could have easily. Runs on up and it comes back, and then it kind of confirms this trend line. The problem is you got a first entry, second entry, but then you make a lower high, and so, or a lower low, I'm sorry. You actually make a lower high too, but I think you'd want to wait on a higher low here that comes off this trend line again. You get it, but it's not a very good signal bar. And then a few minutes later, you get a failed second entry short. But I'm a little leery of that because now you've pushed up here and made a new high, and you're just finding resistance. This is right there. If we put this up here, you can see the resistance across there. We did make a new high, but it's not by a tick or two, and then it's selling off there. So it's real concerning to think about going long right there. But when it tries to go lower again, even though that's a failure, when it tries to go lower and fails and then turns back up and goes out all in one bar, I like going on long then. Because we're probably going to end up trying to go to this high up here. The only problem is at this point you didn't know if it really wasn't right here or not. So I think you need that extra confirmation right here. And then you get another high or low here, but there's just not a very good, your signal bar is this real bearish bar, and you can't take that. And that basically gets us into 230. So there weren't a lot of trades, but a couple of these you would have got a nice runner on it, and you would have been okay. This first one right out of the gate gets a decent runner. You probably would have got a runner here. Actually, you may not have here. I'm not sure if you would have or not. You probably wouldn't have got one here either, even if you took this trade. But it seems like right in here, right here, you might have got one here because it never, by the time it gets up here, you probably could have got a couple of points out of a runner maybe. And then this probably would have got a couple of points out of a runner, but nothing huge today, unfortunately. So these two shorts were probably the best runners of the day. But again, even if you only get 2 or 3 points out of a runner, that's 2 or 3 scalps if you're just scalping singles. So don't underestimate the value of those. Now, don't try to force runners and where you end up getting stopped out on your runners every time and never getting anything out of them, but don't underestimate the value of them either, because they do change your math considerably. So assuming you could catch a runner right here, and you catch, let's just assume, and you catch, and if you get out just in front of the highs up here, well, that's 21 points. I mean, it doesn't take many of those to really change your math. If suddenly you get, let's just say you got 20 of those. Let's just say you got 15 of those, and you're only scalping one, that's just one contract. Well, that's 15 scalps. That covers up a lot of losing scalps, and it makes it worth it going for more. So, a lot of times people can't seem to grasp the benefit of that, but it's usually because they're not getting many runners, and their trade choices are not the best, and they still get their scalp, but they can't seem to get the runners, and their losses just keep piling up on the runners, and they don't see the value of them. But if you could catch one 10-point or one 15-point runner, well, then you got 10 or 15 scalps in one trade, and that really covers up a lot of your previous losers, and then it really causes your math to accelerate. So don't lose, I guess what I'm saying is don't lose sight of that. Play around with it so you understand how the math works, and then continue to try to work towards getting scalps, runners. If you're having a hard time with them, just scalp until you work on your scalping and get better at it. But when you can, and you get to financially where you can afford to go for runners, they're going to pay off for you. But you got to get them first, and you got to be able to hang on to them and not get shaken out of them. I have a hard time. I get shaken out of them. If I get 3 to 5 points, it's usually a pretty good runner for me. Every now and then you'll catch one like this where it's real easy. But when you get days like this right here, it's hard to catch a runner, and it's really hard to hang on to it, even if you catch one. So the kind of moves you want are these big moves down like that and these big moves up like these two. So if you catch them in those points, you do a lot better. So it's a skill. So you got to keep working on it. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. 20 minutes there. Again, not a lot of trades today. All uphill for the most part after the open. I mean, we turned up just after 8:30, maybe 8:40 here or something. I'd say we started up right here. So looks like that's about 8:40. We started up and we traded up almost definitely right into the 230, and we actually went higher from there. So I would say we traded up almost into the close of trading anyway, because we're going to quit by 230. So, and the reason we do that is because it gets a little cranky from that point on into the 3 o'clock hour. And not much at all happens after 4 o'clock. So you really want to be out before. You don't want to take any new trades before 3 o'clock. Probably not even in that last 15 minutes. So I think the safe thing to do is be out by 2:30. Generally, if you're out by 2:30, you should be good. Just don't take any new trades after 2:30. If you want to manage a runner into this time, that's probably okay. But just don't take any new trades is pretty much the rule. And the reason is because you can see there's not much going on after 2:30, and you don't want to get stuck in a trade and by entering a new trade and then having to sit through the craziness that goes on right around 3 o'clock when everybody exits their trade still. Because generally most of the traders still look to get out by 3 o'clock, and most of your equity markets are trading by that, or closing. Your New York 4 o'clock stock closing at 4 o'clock is 3 o'clock on this chart. So that's another part of it. So a lot of people, when they start exiting those trades and that market closes, it slows down here as well. So it affects this market. So just be out by that time. So don't take a new trade after 2:30. Again, you don't have to actually close a runner at this point if you don't want. Just do not take any new trades after 2:30. That's the point we're trying to make here. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll